The god just woke up, suddenly felt the whole body was extremely painful, feeling like the whole bone on his body was crumbling, making him want to move even if it was just a fingertip. More importantly, his head was also painful, countless strange memories flooded his brain, making God temporarily not responding. 2 hours later, the feeling of headache gradually weakened, the god gradually became conscious. What happened to me? But I don't die, so I really passed. The god muttered a few times in his mouth as if wondering, the facial muscles still showed unbelievable, his mouth was open and a cold sweat body also knew this made himself extremely shocked, if he was still sure he had to try to punch some strongly to experience. Trying to arrange countless chaotic memory in his head, the god began to recall, in the previous life he was an orphan nurtured by the orphanage, until the age of 7 years old, there was an old man who came to accept him as an adopted child, returned to live with his head over time. Squirrel when old. Because of his adoptive father and considering him as an idol, God decided to follow his path, nurturing his talent, then he entered the army with the achievement of the valedictorian at the age of 18 years old with the desire to become a great soldier like his adoptive father. But the person who calculated was not equal to heaven, his father fostered Lakdan because his whole life was a righteous person in the middle, so he was guilty of a lot of forces. When he was old away from the powerful chair, it was when they started to act. The permanent god will not forget the scene that day. A few dozen black men broke into the house in the dark night, although with the sharp intuition, the father and son soon realized their existence, but all were too late. A series of ammunition and extremely strong fire did not hesitate to attack the pure wooden house of the two people. The criminal hands buried a great-sided soldier and an infinite desire to be in the fire. Before leaving the world, the god who saw inside the adopted father's murmuring eyes would be endless and warm and apologetic. Perhaps he thought that if he did not accept the adopted child, probably the fate of this was now different, at least not to die with him. The god of moving dry lips, he wanted to tell his father that his teeth were very proud to be his adopted child, only regret that when Lakdan did not open his mouth, all were in the flames. This is probably the biggest regret in my previous life. The bitter god thought. He compressed the Thongkoi to continue arranging his memories of this life, as well as the human condition he had just pierced. In that moment, Lakdan had a great face, endlessly indignant like each of the fire off his heart in his heart, his hands extinguished, his hands fiercely clenched in blood. Breath many times to regain calm, the gods need to cut the teeth, all the way. Vincent trembled and touched his eye position. For a moment, he felt heaven and earth as if he turned around, his two eyes were completely empty. The god is blind, rather, being hooked by the person who dug with two eyes in a way, the god feels endless indignation cannot be inhibited. If he has his strength, he probably shouted like a wild beast, because there was a truth that no matter how much God could not imagine. The main man hooked his eyes in this life, making him must live in the dark night, suffering enough to post the humiliation was his biological father. The difference as the gap between heaven and earth is the same blood that this body once called the father that shocked the god. Heavy. Trying to regain calm, God knew he needed to think of appropriate measures to live with the situation now. A foster father and the ancient owner of this body is called Lakdan, his cold-blooded father is the homeowner Xianxia. This is a notorious religious family of the mainland. In this mainland, people worship fake and disregard the weak. This place has no rules that are worth mentioning, all of which follow the natural law of the permanent strong, the right person who is the truth. The weak must submit to the strong at all costs, if not dead. In this continent, the great forces are mostly created by the prosthetic population, unified into the 9 level, the lowest is the highest and the highest is the 9 level. Xianxia in the mainland of the mainland belongs to the 8 level force, only behind the 2 forces of the ultimate status in the mainland of the mainland, including Tian Sun Tiankin and Bang Huian Empire. Although behind the 2 powerful forces, it did not affect the status of Xianxia in the mainland, because in addition to the other 2 forces, among the thousands of forces in this mainland, they could play with Xianxia and counted on the tip of the finger. Long-lasting existence, Lak Lenyura has countless years without the segment. The ancestors are the characters in the legend that has been promoted to the world. The territory of thousands of miles, millions of people, Tianqiu appeared class. Thereby can see the terrorism of Xianxia here. But Lakdan, again the great prince was born by the owner of Xianxia, Lak loi loi, he should have had a noble status, sucking thousands of love to be right. But ironically, after being born in the expectation of countless people, Lak then as indirectly aggressively slapped his face in the face of the whole tribe on the bottom of the pain. Lak then has no spirit. At the mainland, even though the 3-year-old children know the spirit is the minimum condition to cultivate, there is no spiritual spirit like that, can only be a useless waste. If Lak then was born in a mortal family, this would be very normal. But he was born in Xianxia, was the home of the homeowner. This is like a great joke on the entire mainland of the mainland. The road is the homeowner again born a child. Just that much enough to see the tragic fate of Lak then was about before being born. The mother of Lak then only came from the ordinary Ngalu family. After giving birth to a child, the family was rejected by the whole family and the man, despising, because she was too pitiful, and died without closing her eyes. Everything was worse and worse to Lak then when Xianxia Nhi was born a year later. Also the disciple named Lak Vu, who was born inherited from Lak Lui, possessing 2 types of spiritual and lightning systems. Lightning system is a very rare type of spirit, easy to cultivate, all kinds of trembles with strong destruction, high penalty. Prosthetic cultivation possesses the spiritual system is often stronger than the same level, which is the reason that Lak Lui sat firmly in the position of the landlord, the authority absolutely no one dared to invade. Lak Vu inherited Lak Lui. These 2 types of spirituality made the entire tribal on the bottom of the joy. Through the elder decided, Lak Vu was appointed to be the Lak of future Lak. The appearance of Lak Vu made Lak then more and more humiliating, Lak then at Xianxia losing to the slaves, because in this hegemony family, even if the slave was able to cultivate, Lak then lived a lowly life, doing a lowly work for the family as no different from the slave just to have rice to eat. No one considered him as a great prince, even his existence was Xianxia's humiliating. Everything seemed to be that but not. In the year of the Lak then 13 years old, the disciples of Lak Vu of must be cultivated a kind of narrative of the family. Of unintentional occurring, leading to blindness. As a powerful bowl of power transmitted through generations, Xianxia has a secret to pair another eye for Lak Vu, but in order not to occur negligent, the elders of Xianxia agreed to use the eyes of the same bloodline as Lak Vu. And the most cruel thing came. Lak Lui was cruelly hooked the eyes of his son to transplant to his other son. Despite the desperate and hateful expression of Lak then still did not have a ray of affecting Lak Lui's determination. Obviously, between a waste guy and a genius, Lak Lui without thinking. Blind at the age of 13, Lak then completely lost the right to live as a human in the family. He became a mobile sandbag for the young children in the family to practice dance. Every time the body was about to die, they let go of him, give food, give him time to recover, then continue to torture. It seems that the abuse of the son of the owner makes the children feel abnormal. Over the past 3 years, Lak then has lived such a life. His eyes are blind, constantly receiving damage from the body to the soul. The tragic fate of the human being named Lak then closed at the age of 16 after a training of the devils of the young disguise. And also that fateful moment, a completely different Lak god, from another world through. So how happy I am, so happy. Lak then exclaimed, even though his previous life was not quite much, but that was what the ancient owner of this body could not touch. Lak then silently decided, if God gave the opportunity to penetrate this world, he would not surrender to fate. No matter what, he still lived more than humiliating. Die. No matter, first, you need to escape from misery now. Ken, awakening successfully, the system of systems starts to activate. Here is the time to receive the owner, 1098. 52. A strange sound, somewhat machinery, suddenly rang in his head, cut off the thought of Lak then. In that moment the breath of Lak then stopped breathing, his face stiffened with the pupil flushed red because of joy like crazy. Although Lak then tried to think, he still could not find a measure to escape from misery, blind eyes, body serious, cowardly status. Therefore, the sound of the system sounded like sleepy to meet the screening, bringing warm coal on the day of snow. He was excited that it was completely understandable. Ken, receive successful owner, congratulate Lak then to become the owner of the system. The sound of the machinery resounded in his head. Without too much thought, Lak then immediately opened his mouth. I want to get rid of the current misery, is there any way or not? The voice had just stopped, an image immediately appeared next to him. Although Lak then was blind, the image of this appearance still transmitted into his brain miraculously. It was a small lowly small, the size of the adult's hand, the shiny black hair, the sparkling eyes, the eyelashes, the nose, the small mouth of the red pink, the pink skin and the dimples, the man wearing the golden AO dye, but still extremely cute. Hello owner, I am the representative of the system, from now on will be in the assistant for you. The small lowly opened her small mouth to reveal the white teeth like corn, the sound directly transmitted into the head of Lakdan, sweet and clear like the stream, Are you the spirit of the system? Lakdan thought, did not open his mouth. His previous life he read many works of the first half, knowing some of the dharmas with the power of terrorism often had the spirit of support. It can be considered like that lowly as understood the thought in the mind of Lakdan, but only answered through the speaker. Lakdan is also not uncomfortable, thinking that he is not enough right now to know these types of information. Do you have a name? Anyway, the name is still more convenient to interact, he asked. Invite the owner of the name. Tuan lowly said, his eyes lit up, obviously waiting for his name. The whole body of the yellow dress is noble, the temperament is immunity, so call you Kim Nhi, on the other hand, call me the prince, call the owner of my feeling very unfamiliar. Lakdan slowly seeing, the 2 lives he lived a simple life, the fact that a small head called the owner made the whole body unnatural. Thank you very much, hi Kim Nhi excitedly smiled lovely, obviously very satisfied with this name of her. Alright, is there any way for me to get rid of the current misery? How does the system owner operate? Lakdan went straight to the main issue. His current situation is like a hanging light in front of the wind, receiving the system as a promotion of across Vietnamese people, not taking advantage of stupid. He also did not want to care about the system that he owned whether or not to harm him or not, anyway, there was nothing left to lose. Kim Nhi also knew that he was in the main topic, seriously opening his mouth to answer. The system of the system will not from the tricks to help their owners become a hegemony, of course in this strong and weak world, the only way to become the hegemony is naturally to become the strongest person, so that the strength of the prince can complete the types of system tasks given from there to achieve certain rewards. In short, the system will strive to build the path of becoming the leader of the princess. Of course, the current system is just awakened, is in a level 1 state, the less power is still, the prince needs to be constantly stronger to upgrade the system, the higher the system of the system, the more function will be, thereby helping the dude to shorten the path to become a hegemony. Kim Nhi continued to explain. That was very good. Lakdan nodded satisfied. Anyway, the morality of himself tried to still understand, could not be too dependent on the system like the hacking stories he had read in the previous life. Ken, launch the first main task, the beginning of the hegemony, the unknown reward, the punishment failure, death, the system disappears. Note mission, within 100 years of confessing the mainland, subduing the 2 great power, using the mainland to make the first pedal to conquer the hegemony path. Ken, launch only the task, dragon to the sea wide, the one-time reward appoints the summon of the item, the sanctions failure, Lak Gia prison for 5 years. Note mission, the owner is always in the supervision of Lak Vu, being considered by the opponent as a thorn in the eyes, escaping from Lak Gia as escaping from Lak Vu's eyes, thereby seeking opportunities for development. Ken, the system is awakened for the first time, awarded the new player to 1 pack. Continuously mechanical sounds rang. After listening, Lakdan decided to ignore the 2 tasks. What he was most concerned about right now was the new ceremony. He could complete the 2 types of tasks or not, all depending on the New Year ceremony. About Lak Vu closed him without the expected of Lakdan. Anyway, I carried the name of the waste. A genius like Lak Vu felt that there was such a big brother in life. Prince quickly opened the ceremony to see, Kim Nhi urged. Obviously she was extraordinarily curious. After all, she was just a representative by the system created to communicate with Lakdan. The types of tasks and rewards are still the main system. Lakdan silently nodded, thinking in his mind, open the new ceremony. Ken, sign the owner determined to open the new ceremony. The system's confirmation sound rang. True is not thinking, Lakdan used to think. Ken, congratulate the owner to open the New Year ceremony, collect once randomly forbidden summoning of the French level, Once randomly summoned the summon of the legal level, once randomly summoned summoning the level of good dance, whether Thuong Dan 3 capsules, Tuna Difu Fu 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 3 plates, 1 primary permeability. Ken, items will be stored in the space of the system. My heaven, but even the prohibition of the level of public law appears. Kim Nhi shouted at the shades, the noble appeal of the air completely disappeared, her lips were gaping, her eyes wanted to glare out, even the small body was trembling because of excitement. Lakden on the one hand, based on the memory of this body, the law, the technique, and the weapon at this world are divided into 5 levels, Lin, Tian, Dia, Huian, Huang. In which, taking the spirit, Huang is the lowest, prohibiting the level of the law is what is the devil. Is it very dangerous to prohibit the law? Lakden was difficult to swallow saliva to ask Kim Nhi. How can not be dangerous? This is a kind of existence, in front of the ban on what spirit level, heavenly level is a trash of the prince no. Kim Nhi has not regained agitation. It seems that the system is determined to forge the infinite prince, the son must try, try a lot, not a lot. Kim Nhi stammered and said a long overflow, her small face flushed with excitement, obviously able to follow an owner with money that made her not inhibited joy, not forgetting to encourage Lakden, because she knew how difficult to cultivate forbidden. Lakden was terrified on the one hand, Hein Nhi did not think that the 2 words forbid so that they were so terrorist, must know that Lakgia could become a bowl of force to cultivate the force partly because of the Lak and Gayat Bang Dharma by the ancestors of the generation. It is known that this is a high-ranking natural stage. Not only can it be perfect for the monks to own the spiritual base system, in addition to the powerful moon. It is said that there was an assassin organization led by the miraculously assassinated murderer, leading to the owner of Lak's anger, personally acting to develop Lak and Gayat Bang Kin inside the army of Lak Bang Attorney, leading to thousands of miles of the area to become Han Bang, organizing the killer of nearly 3,000 people to become a broken ribbon in the snow wind. No one was lucky to escape. As for the spiritual level, he only heard rumors of the 2 forces, Tian Sun Tiankin and Bang Huian Empire owned, but that was only a legend, no one has stood out to be authentic. Prohibition, Lak then set out these 2 words, Kim Nhi has no reason to deceive him, so obviously this Kindi's father, he will definitely not miss the most chance of Phi Tian this time. Summary. So we achieve the law and other rewards randomly. Lak then continued to ask questions, this is an important step to determine fate, he did not dare to pass. Yes, for example, currently the prince owns a summon level summon, maybe the prince likes to use the sword, but when the summon is out of the sword, for example, in addition, the legal security also divides into a preliminary, medium, and extreme product, which can be summoned to any level, but also to see the temperament of the sun, Kim Nhi explained. What about the law? If unfortunately we summon the dharma of the ghost of the pagan, maybe we have to enter the ghost. Lakden's face was a bit unsightly, he did not want to become a murdering ghost like. Prince may not cultivate, no *s8 ma dharma is what? Lakden awakened to enlightenment, he claimed to be too superficial compared to lowly before his eyes, the law was not the righteousness, silently remembering this morality. So first heal a deer like this first. Lakden was slightly moved, the other whether Thuong Dan appeared in the palm of his hand, not too much hesitation, Lakden forced pain to put the whole body in his mouth swallowed, he felt a storm of spirit from Dan Dien spread throughout his body, countless inside wounds closed, the red bumps on the face also disappeared. The spirit is the most basic cultivation resource that exists in the heavens, the prosthetic leg can cultivate entirely based on the absorption of the spirit of heaven and earth, but the conditions for absorbing spiritual energy are spirituality. That is why a person without spirituality like Lakden falls so tragic. At this time, the reader realized that Lakden possesses the appearance of Mr. Tuan extremely, a sword eyebrow, high nose waves, thick lips slightly smirked. Anyway, Lak Lay is the home of the homeowner, the appearance of the appearance is in the unjustly, the mother of Lakden even though she is only the female of the family, but she can caught the eye of Laklua, the beauty does not need to be discussed. Inheriting the blood of 2 people like that, the appearance of Lakden is naturally equally. Only regret that his mother died too early, even her appearance was not very impressive. Miraculously knitting medicine Lakden stood up, His whole body was extremely refreshed, just that his eyes were still blind so that he could not judge himself as well as the surrounding situation. The idea of moving, the two edema appeared in his hand, the information about the two types of continent also automatically appeared in his head. Primary understanding, use can automatically capture all the situation within the radius of 300 m around, capable of detecting the gas, the power of the Nguyen can or less even though the opponent deliberately hidden, the maintenance time is 24 hours. Tuna Defu, transmit the user to the tomb T in random place, with a random distance, can be hundreds of miles, can also be up to 10,000 miles, only used once. This is obviously for my situation now. Lakden was satisfied to smile, it seemed to be quite reliable, although the Lakgia territory owned up to thousands of miles, but the location of the clan was only around thousands of miles, can leave the centrifugal ganglion where Lakden was completely complete. The system is naturally reliable, Kim Nhi widened her eyes, continued, no matter this is the beginning of the sun, trying to upgrade the system, will continue to have a reward. Lakden nodded, bringing with him to expect for the future, his right hand immediately crushed the elementary picture of the text. Although still empty eyes, but thanks to the elementary level of Tifu, at this time, Lakden compared to ordinary people more clearly, he saw clearly every smallest secretion around, even to every small ants on the ground is no exception. Lakden began to evaluate his body, thin was the first impression, but because he lived in the bowl of Lakjo force, the conditions of the heavenly spirit here belonged to the high-class goods in the mainland, the Lakden skin was still white, the body because he did countless silence from the young so he was extremely strong, 16 years old approached 1m8. High body, this is probably the most valuable thing that Lakden previously left for him. Lakden now assessed where he was a small wooden room, inside there was nothing but a pile of straw on the ground, this was his place, next to him was a bowl of rice that was still at the same cup of light water. The idea of just moving, Lakden can now see through the 300 m radius, his eyes become very large, Lakden discovered that he was in the same area for the slave of Lakgia, where there were countless rooms, just his room was probably the worst, anyway, he still had a normal slave still having a bed to sleep. Lakden did not have too much emotions, compared to what this body had to suffer, that was not so bad. He also discovered that there were two body images hiding in the darkness about 200 m staring towards his small room, based on the effects of the primary thin thion, so Lakden looked out of these two men, obviously two men who had a medium-trained spiritual practice. Definitely a hound of Lakvu. Lakden laughed coldly, with the current power of Lakvu, he was not reassuring a waste like himself, even for the two medium-sized air training, it could be seen that this little sun was extremely narrow. Practicing gas is the first step of the prosthetic cultivation, the people in this realm have the ability to absorb the spirit of the spirit to train the body and the soul from there to increase the strength. The people who come to the primary gas training can lift objects weighing 100 times more than the body. Lakden was constantly tortured by the young children who had tortured the gas of Lakgia, so they had to sleep, even though they did not use all their strength but only with the psychology of having fun torturing him. After all, he still carried the blood vessels of the owner, see if he needed to break his mouth, no one dared to kill him, which was also the reason for Lakvu to let him go. Based on the memory of Lakden, at the mainland, the realm is divided into 8 levels as follows: practicing gas, bamboo, needle, knitting, Nguyen, chemistry, train, hoping, life. Each realm is divided into preliminary, central, post-production and fullness. The cold-blooded father of Lakden is a fake master of the post-life practice. In the entire Bangtian mainland, he can compete with him as a hero who proclaims a way. That disciples of Lakvu's amenities of Lakden only 15 years old has reached the realm of Kim Dan, but also the spiritual attribute, recognized as the first genius of Lakgia, who admired. It is also the beginning of summoning, to see what can help us start kicking the path of the hegemony Lakden thought, which he intended to use Nadifu first to leave Lakgia and proceed to summon, but Nadifu only randomly transmitted it. With a mortal body like him, it was very dangerous, unfortunately transmitted into danger or a wild forest, certainly could not survive the thrust more than humanity. Anyway, the dangerous place is a safe place, although there are 2 supervisors, but if we do not leave the room, they cannot know what we are doing. Lack then decided to proceed to summon in our own room. It is recommended that the owner should not first be forbidden for the level of the French level. Kim Nhi floated next to him, very seriously looking at Lack. Then Trin solemnly said, "Why?" Lack then knew Kim Nhi wanted to be good for herself but still could not help but ask. Kim took a deep breath, very solemnly opened his mouth. Each type of prohibition of the level of law is unique in the entire universe. They are arrogant, suppressing thousands of ancient people. From Hong Huang in the period until now, when appearing news about the ban will lead to countless winds of rain and blood, billions of thousands of livelihoods die for the competition. Therefore, the banned level is not toleraries. Every time they appear, they will be punished, and they will be punished at the same time. Close. Lack then silently wiped his forehead sweat. Fortunately he was not impatient. In the impatience of this type of terrorist existence appeared, no matter how the system knew that the system had accepted to give this opportunity, there would be a solution. As expected, only Kim Nhi continued. Prohibiting the spirit, with the current state of the sun, even if the support system does not completely suppress it, so after that, after summoning, the system will seal the prohibition in a separate space, only to sign the owner to absorb small parts in it over time in order to increase the strength of solid, in addition to avoiding the search of Tiandeo. Lack then nodded, this is probably the best way. He also does not want himself to become a terrorist existence like Tiandeo stared. I understand, so he first started from the fact that summoning the legendary dance. Lack then ordered. VUKY is a prosthetic cultivation skill used to attack enemies, defense, or auxiliary. VUKY has many types with many uses, but the most popular dance is the type of powerful power. KY owner confirmed try Yu Huian dancing. Machine audio system. The hook spoke. True. Lack then does not hesitate to confirm. Ken, starting randomly conducting the level of dance summoning, 5 4 3 2 1. Ken, sign the owner receives a very good quality of the dance, temporarily collected. System space. Good. Lack then was happy, unexpectedly right at the level of extreme product. It seemed that our aura was not too inferior. Lack then could not wait, the idea was just moving. A piece of quartet pearl appeared in his hand, only to see the jade was sculpted 4 types of interesting intersection. They were alive as if there were true souls, mighty tigers, punishment, golden rules like mountains, mighty metal, noble phoenix. How to cultivate? Lack then could not wait, immediately asked Kim Nhi. For VUCAO with the pearl form of the system, the prince needs small blood to receive the owner, Kim Nhi casually answered, with her eyes, even though Tian Vu was not very important. Lack then bit his fingertips, a drop of blood into the jade. Very quickly, blood was completely absorbed. At the same time, 4 types of light inside the pearl rushed into the mind of the mind. The amount of news began to transmit into his memory, but the jade was also very gloomy and faded into the chalk. Obviously dancing only transmitted only once. 4 spiritual spirits. Class, Master of Great Quality. Origin, Vu carefully became the name of the youth of the beast Vo Tien Tun. Uses, condensation of heaven and earth to form the beast. Each type of beast corresponds to the most spiritual, tiger corresponding tiger, rules corresponding to Mach, Hung corresponding to earth, Phoenix corresponding to fire. People with 4 types of spiritual souls are given by the 4 souls. Fighting there, the same level is hard to have opponents. The feeling of pain due to the amount of information brought does not make Lack then uncomfortable. On the contrary, his face is not easy to see because of the conditions of the law. It takes 4 types of spirituality to promote the most powerful power. This requirement is even more engraved than some of the skillful levels we have heard. Of course, with the power of all 4 kinds of comprehensive beasts, just afraid of the power to overcome some ordinary techniques, not over the difficult cultivation conditions, so the level of each type of animal is only considered a great quality. This time it is considered as a dude to earn a word. Kim Nhi explained. So that's like that. The current No 88 we have no spirituality, temporarily cannot cultivate, continue to summon the land of Dharma to go away. Ken, sign the owner confirming the summon of the random legal level. Correct. Starting the summon of the legal level, 8765. Longer than 3 seconds. Lack then directed Kim Nhi to ask. Yes, the higher the summon, the longer the time. Kim Nhi nodded and confirmed. Kang, summon successfully, the owner receives the medium-sized Dharma products, temporarily collected into the system space. The sound of the summon system is completed. Medium-level geography? Lack then whispered, a piece of lemon in his hand appeared in his hand, only to see that Chow was green, smooth that he could look at the mirror, around his body shine faintly. The strange thing was that Lack then also smelled a faint aroma of the woman that made his face a bit strange. Below, the brother also reacted. Looks not very strong. Lack then shyly slammed the direction to look to Kim Nhi, waiting for her to explain. This first knowledge was extremely erudite. Prince should not be disappointed. This is probably the kind of legal protection that has the ability to support cultivation. Kim Nhi did not let Lack then disappointed, immediately made a judgment. All right, except the owner immediately no. A feeling of blood vessels associated with the very miraculously born in the heart of Lack then. The grain is like a part of his body, depending on his control, thanks to the system of existence. Otherwise, with the mortal body like Lack then, accepting the landlord of the legal level is the story of the death. Not being exposed to death is lucky. Linjoy Chao, the middle class of legal products. Origin, one of the Dharma guarantees of Tuesday and Gaiet new emperor when she was young. Uses, self-forming your own space contains living things, increasing the speed of the spirit of the person who comes in 3 times higher than the foreign world. Information about the spiritual world automatically conveyed to Lack then. Well, Rice, geography is different. Lack then on the one hand was happy to laugh, haha, obviously the use of this Yuanzhou completely surpassed his expected. Must know that at the bowl level, forces like Lack Gia, the juniors in the clan, often cultivated on the spiritual battlefields that could collect the spirit also 3 times higher than normal circumstances. However, the spirit of the battle is extremely expensive, fixed in one place. But this spirit of his world has the same use as the spirit of the battle. Moreover, he can bring it to him, this remuneration, even though Lack Vu does not have, not to mention its ability to contain its living object. Unable to wait, the concept was both moving. The body of Lack then immediately disappeared. But the other pearls in the blink of an eye have minimized countless times, even smaller than a dust grain falling into the ground in the Lack then room. Even if Lack Loi himself came here, if he did not intentionally try to search, do not expect to detect it. After stabilizing the body, Lack then began to evaluate the space within the spiritual world, only to see this place like a room about 500 meth full meth, with the ground and the sky is no different from the foreign world, just not sun. It is miraculously said that we cannot cultivate at the moment, do not feel the spirit of this place, Lack then exclaimed. The space is too small. Tuesday and Gaiet new emperor when the trigger and children are too stingy. Kim Nhi also appeared beside him, pouting small lips. It's just a medium-sized place, it is very good like this. Lack then smiled bitterly, this head was too high. Thinking of the fragrance of the people above the Chao County, he pretended to ask Kim Nhi to ask, who is Vio Tiantun and Tuesday and Gaiet de? Kim Nhi was not important on the one hand, replacing, anyway, it is more dangerous than Lack Loi, hundreds of thousands of times, no matter if he is not in this mainland, he can meet them or not depending on the fate of the sun. Of course he may have died, no one dares to say first. Saying also, Lack then smiled bitterly, shook his head to forget the smell of the other girl who loved the other person. Now he does not have time to think of these things, the most important thing is to quickly increase his strength. Aggressively took a deep breath, eyes filled with determination, Lack then Trin solemnly opened his mouth, starting the summon bell forbidden to grant the law. Determining the randomly forbidden summoning the law. System audio still does not bring emotions. True. Lack then breathed a bit, this is an important turning point to determine his future, saying no urgently is a lie. Kang, starting to summon the penalty of the law. Kang, starting to count down, 3,600, 3,599, 3,588. The countdown sound began to ring a little bit. Lack then took a breath of air, his dry lips swallowed his saliva, a heart could not inhibit the thin. It must be known that, even if it is a local level, the summoning time is only 8 seconds, he has speculated that the previous ban was very terrorist, the recalling time could be up to a few hundred seconds, but did not expect that the system countdown of the system brought up to 3,600. A minute is 60 seconds, the number of terrorists 3,600, i.e. 60 minutes, meaning an hour. According to Kim Nhi, the stronger the item will be. So how strong, how to exist in the end? Lakdan did not afford to imagine. After all, he was just a young teenager, about to be able to own a kind of corrugated iron like a ban, not jumping and screaming crazy because of his happiness, proving that his mind was quite good. Nothing is amazing, for the prohibition, the system wants to summon it is not easy, but because the system is still in a level 1 state, if the next day upgrade will be different. Kim Nhi opened her small lips, her face also stopped. 1800, 1799, 1790. The sound of the system still slowly rang. First of all, leaving the spiritual world, Lakdan slightly moved the concept. He did not want to suddenly happen anything unintended. Anyway, the spiritual world was just a legal place, inside it was summoned, existed as if it was not satisfactory. The body of Lakdan appeared inside the small room, slightly touched to discover the position of the spiritual world on the ground. Lakdan brought it hidden in his long hair. The world was still smaller than the dust seeds. Adverb G. Second countdown has passed. Lakdan now lies neatly on the pile of straw. His heart gradually calmed down. No matter what kind of law he has to disregard, cultivation, whether the type of evil or ghost, is no exception. Kim Nhi is also very serious at the air. The space is extremely quiet. Only the countdown sound of the system is still constantly rang. 10, 9, 7, 3, 2. Kang, summon finished. Lakdan on the one hand was tense, the last time for him was like decades. Congratulations on the host to receive the prohibition method Immortal Sutta. The sound system is still cold and emotionless. Do not know whether or not the illusion is. Lakdan clearly touches the inside of its mechanical tone that contains a trembling ray. Immortal acting, immortal, and born. Lakdan whispered, heard the name already known to belong to the cattle and buffaloes, forced to excitement in his heart. He turned to Kim Nhi expressing his question. This girl. Prohibit this type of rank, although in the universe, there has been a difference in the prohibition method, but the name of this kind of dharma of the prince I have never heard of. Kim Nhi stammered. Obviously she did not have information about immortality. Kang, forbidden to be sealed. Did the owner accept cultivation? The system again spoke. Lakdan also did not continue to wonder, immediately nodded to confirm. Kang, start transmission. At that moment, Lakdan felt that his soul was separated from the body, the space darkened, all the senses seemed to be closed. Not knowing how long, Lakdan woke up. Hitting his view was a large piece of endless space, full of dark nights. His soul was floating in the middle of this vast space, spoiled and adventurous. In that endless night space, suddenly there was a small beam of light with countless colors that were fluttering as if it had been existed for a long time, perhaps thousands of years or more. The beam exists in the center of the space, like the most beautiful planet in the entire dirty universe. Mystery but noble. That is the evaluation that Lakdan won for the beam. He wanted to know what was covered inside that beam. Unfortunately not. That light was not dazzling but enough to fit it what it was covered, like it was covered, like a female with normal beauty but full of arrogance. Outside the light beam, countless chains of silence intertwined. Lakdan observed carefully, finally realized the chains were combined into a town. Lakdan finally understood. This infinite dark space is the separate space of the system. The mysterious chains are seals used to suppress. But inside the other beam, the thing that was suppressed was his immortal life. As if something was impulsive, Lakdan reached out and held his arms and hugged the beam and sealed outside it. Only seeing the seal outside the light beam shows signs of letting go. Very small, very small. In that moment, the variation arises. An extremely powerful force from the light beam emitted, fiercely attacked towards the thin soul of Lakdan, with the intention to defeat the soul of the One. Possess yourself. Lakdan's soul shook violently, forming large waves. His face began to twist because of pain. Lakdan wanted to open his mouth to reduce the pain, but no matter how he could not do it. The suffering of the soul was hundreds of thousands of times more painful than the flesh, and could not shout out, died as if covering the skinny body. Lakdan's soul became increasingly faint, about to be beaten. Lakdan knew that as long as he let go of the light beam, all the pain he suffered would disappear. But, that means failure. Is he committed? Of course not. Orange. Thinking about the previous life scene with his adoptive father buried in the flames, thinking of countless humiliation in this life finally unjustly dead. Laktan only knew that life was very valuable, but the more cherished that was solemn. Living without a solemnity, what do you live? In this world of dogs, there is no absolute power, who will give you solemn? Laktan wanted to live, and wanted to have a solemn. The opportunity is in front of the eyes, even though the soul is dissipated, even though the outcome is tragic, we still have to bet once. He fiercely hugged the light beam, although the pain was constantly ending, the ripple soul became more and more fierce, seemingly able to dissipate at any time. It is not known how long, as soon as the Laktan soul becomes transparent as it gradually blends on the black night, the consciousness is completely about to disintegrate, but the soul of the arms right at the arm still holds the light beam tightly. As satisfied with the expression of Laktan, miracle arises. The light beam rotates inside the seal. End of the mysterious self. Mysterious next from the light beam appears into the Laktan soul. The weak soul of suddenly condensed, just above the soul at this time, there were countless ancient people mixed in. Obviously, the mysterious ancient necks were directly engraved into the Laktan soul, perfect. Consciousness because of his fainting pain also began to wake up. Laktan felt a soulful situation, he felt his soul now compared to when he had just entered the system space 100,000 times stronger. For a mortal like him, this is indeed invincible. Not happy. He has touched the ancients to be carved into his soul perfectly. Laktan began to understand the content of the ancients. At this time, the mysterious self-magies were his. Laktan could understand them miraculously. How? How is it? Immortal pursued. Vanlin is equal. Immortal of the first sutta, capacitor, practice soul. Tien Dao Chi label, how could it be? What did Xianxia finally make a heavenly thing? Looking at the other, the eyes of the eye appeared on the Xianxia territory, a bunch of fake powers standing outside observing at the mainland of the mainland terrified to the limit. No one knows that the mainland is formed since now, because the historic river is really too far away, even if the great level of life is not endless, through countless wounded high dying, no one can understand the whole history of this mainland. However, according to the ancient bibliographies with records, the number of times the mainland of the mainland appeared to be able to count on the fingers, including one single recorded in the most thorough way. According to the ancient record, it was countless years ago, an ancient monk of self-proclaimed bloody magic troops had a terrorist monk of the long life, conducting sneaky to catch more than 1 billion humanity of 12 self-energy levels. The energy of the force only possesses the fake power of the fullness of the god, in front of a fullness of life like the blood of Makwan is like. The fish lying on the cutting board, they were sucked all bloody blood to provide energy for the bloody army, the intention to promote the world. That caused countless monks of the whole subject of the whole mainland of the mainland, the two powerful forces, Bang Huiyan Empire and Tien Sun Tiancan temporarily dismissed the hatred, dominated countless bowls of power or less. Should ghost festival with the purpose of hunting and destroying the blood of the army. Unfortunately, Bloodsat Makwan has calculated a long plan, where he hides extremely mysterious, although Mahui tried to flip most of the mainland bands but could not find the whereabouts. In the end, the blood of Makwan successfully trained the blood of more than 1 billion livelihoods. Tutu entered the first scene, he took the final step of the first life to completely promote the world. The place where he hides and his life is a very mysterious secret on the mainland, due to the blood of the Makwan accidentally discovered when he was young, from which he had planned inhumane for many years to once, at that time he was still a teenage knitting needle. While the blood of the Makwan started to priority, countless high-ranking fake powers of the mainland immediately touched, Flabby appeared, just everything was too late, a billion of spirituality turned into dry, resentment of natural air spreading throughout a continent even though the god of God could not bear the blood on the spot, some monks who had a lower micro-religion were infiltrated. No one dared to interfere with his life. In the face of the unpleasant eyes of countless fake powers, the blood of Makwan frantically laughed, contemptuously glanced at the main monks, continuing the life of the first life. It seemed like a ghost like him could succeed. Tien Dao Chi label finally appears. Only seeing the life of the bloody Ma troops suddenly increased countless times, even in the legend of the three-colored life appeared, thousands of rays of life accidentally hit the blood of Ma Quan. With the terrorist monk now approaching his ferry, the blood of the army only. Successfully fighting 100 rays of life, the end is extremely unmistakable. That Tiandao Chi Nan also closed indifferently. It seemed that the elimination of a supreme-headed ghost like the blood of Ma Quan was like crushing an ant. Because of that reason, all of them are now hard to believe in the feeling of looking at Lakgia. Silently speculated that Lakgia finally made a story of heavenly damage, and was touched by Tiandao. I am touched by your mother. Lak Lang Lei, if he knew the thoughts of the other people, would surely crazy like that. It was just now in his heart, still extremely obscure, completely unaware that he was about to face due to the calculation of a waste in his eyes. Before the panic eyes and the extreme of the countless people of the Lakgia, Lak Lang Loi knew that he needed to keep his calm attitude to reassure the collective. The elders, you personally transport the great battle of the clan. He took a deep breath. The elders also knew the seriousness of the incident. The whole crowd fluttered. Nodding to leave. Qbang Violiet was inherently due to the 9 guardians with the spirit of the Lak, but this time the elders himself would replace them, because their enemies were Tiandao, could not happen. Saying is long, but from the time the dark clouds covered Lakgia, until Tiandao Chi now appeared only in the 10 respiratory rounds, from which he could see how terrible the ability to judge and solve the situation of Lak Loi and Lakgia was, not ashamed to be a bowl of clan. If in return for a number of other small clans, it was soon scared to blow out the pants and frantically flee. First. But at this time, as if unable to be patient, countless Lei Ding gathered in the same place, forming a natural column like a pillar against heaven, aiming at all the tribes to hit straight down. 9 elderly elders of the Lakgia Kwang of the one-faced side, the ironing system of the frantic attribute mobilized, along with the coordination of countless people. Gia, apply Qbang Violiet to fight Tiankeep. Above the battlefield, the 3 giant painted tip of the painting accelerated, shielding in front of the Lakgia territory. Ro. The sound of the nails was shocked by countless people. Only after the collision, the 3 tops of the paint were a bit gloomy. Any other ray of terrorist life also gradually dissipated. Hooray, stop it. Haha, in front of us to win the 9 Bing Bing Championship, even if heaven and lifetimes it is also award. Countless ethnic groups of Lakgia cheered, extremely arrogant eyes. Just Lak Loi's face and the elders are still extremely insecure. Rumbling. As expected, there was no stop there, a ray of 3-colored Tamray condensed. Not to say no that continuing to hit Lakgia. Applying Engusun, well without Luke Sun Ho battle. Obeying the command, the sound of the clan of the battle. Only seeing the intensive Lakgia ethnic group increased the ability to apply spiritual energy. Above the French battle immediately condensed 3 more tapes. Ro. Still the sound of the horror rang. Countless people of the low turret of Lakgia Chan typed to the blood, but the 9 elders were also pale. The whole group of stern eyes, because the other ray of the 3-colored life has not dissipated. But right now, beside Tiandao only labeled, 2 columns of 3 colors of life are gradually condensing. Seeing this situation, countless people shrinked. According to the ancient record, destroying the blood of the Ma Quan only used 5 rays of triangle, but now Lakgia has to cope with 3 rays. Worth dying. This is ultimately what happens to our Lakgia. Lak Lei cursed silently in his mouth, unjust to the extreme, silently decided in his heart, will definitely clear this truth. Father, what happened in the end? A stable sound rang out, only to see a young man wearing a calm needle walk to the side of Lak Lua. He had a long black hair flying, noble pine, just witnessing the sky, his eyes like tin ha, sparkling with the spirit. This is the eyes of Lak then. This teenager is Lakgia, Lak of owner, Lak Vu. The first genius of the family level, even though it is also the top of the mainland. Vunhi, you are near breakthrough. Lak Lu Loi witnessed the son of his son about to approach Kim Dan, felt extremely satisfied, his mind was inherently drowsy and became comfortable. Yes, inherently can break through, no *38 static movement. This place is too big to make the baby uneasy. Lak Vu is not fast and slow to speak. Good, not ashamed to be my unique son. Lak Loi was satisfied with a few good words, obviously in his eyes only a sun in front of his eyes, about the part. The other waste maybe he despised. Many thanks to the father, it is too much compared to him. Lak Vu is humble, even though his eyes show a glimmer of satisfaction. Lak Langloi did not say anything. The young man was a normal story, let alone his son was completely brave enough to attain Chi. Ro. The sound rang out of the conversation between his father. The two rays of the trio of heavenly life began to start with the original ray. Applying Q-Sun to Lak Loi, and the elder Lak Tonliet shouted loudly. His face was extremely unsightly. Lak Vu also knew the serious incident on one side, said nothing.